Welcome to this explainer. Look, we hear constantly about how autonomous AI agents are going to completely upend human work. It's everywhere, right? But to really grasp where we're going with all of this, we actually need to look at where we've been. Specifically, we need to talk about the age of STEAM.
There's this profound realization we all need to embrace. Before we try to predict what agentic AI will do to human work, it is absolutely crucial to ask what STEAM did. Because to understand our AI-driven future, we first have to look way backward, all the way to 1769. That was the year James Watt improved the steam engine, and the single greatest lesson from that exact moment in history is this. When a new, world-altering power arrives, literally nobody, not the inventors, not the business partners, not even the earliest adopters, nobody actually knows what they have on their hands.
Okay, Section 1, the steam engine surprise, a real failure of imagination.
So, when James Watt improved the steam engine, he didn't actually invent the whole thing from scratch. He took a really clumsy, atmospheric machine that had already been pumping water out of coal mines since around 1712, and he just made it drastically more efficient. But here is the crazy part. Neither he nor the mill owners who bought it had any idea of the true magnitude of what they possessed. Early steam engines were used for exactly one thing, and one thing only: pumping water out of mines. I mean, it was the obvious application, right? Mines flooded, and steam could unflood them. For decades, these guys thought they just had a better pump. It's kind of like if we looked at a massive backhoe today and thought it was just a highly specific shovel. They completely missed that they were holding the keys to an entirely new relationship between humanity and physical work.
Which brings us to Section 2, rebuilding the factory, the adoption delay. Let's move over to the factory floor to look at a comically obvious historical mistake.
If you look at the layout of an old water wheel factory and compare it to an early steam factory, you'll notice something hilarious. They are exactly the same. Early adopters just wired this massive new technology right into the old layout. They swapped out the water wheel for a steam engine, kept the massive central main shaft, kept the long rows of belts, and changed absolutely nothing else. They essentially took a revolutionary new power source just to do the old way of working a little bit faster.
And here is the staggering result of that incredibly narrow mindset. It took roughly 30 years to realize steam engines didn't need to feed a single central shaft. Think about that. It took a full generation of human beings for designers to finally realize, wait a minute, we don't need to put the engine right in the center of the building. We can put smaller engines wherever we actually need power. They finally realized they could redesign the entire factory around the work itself instead of tethering everything to a single massive shaft. And when that realization finally clicked, productivity didn't just increase, it exploded.
Section 3. The invisible industries, the blind spots of the era. The crucial point for us to understand here is that both sides of the debate back in 1800 got the future completely wrong.
The optimists of the time, well, they saw cheaper goods and faster production. But they totally missed the painful reality of the transition. They glossed over decades of job displacement and the total collapse of skilled trades that had taken generations to build up. They hit the nail on the head regarding the destination, but were totally wrong about the journey. Meanwhile, the pessimists, they just saw ruin. They couldn't even begin to imagine the entirely new categories of work that were coming, mostly because those jobs didn't even have names yet.
We're talking locomotive engineers, railway workers, telegraph operators, steel workers, urban planners. I mean, no one in 1790 was commissioning a study on the future of railway construction because there were no railways. No one could predict these specific jobs because the world of 1800 had absolutely no language and zero need for them yet. They were genuinely invisible industries just waiting to be born.
And the ultimate result of all this? 21 million. Between 1750 and 1850, steam power made it possible to sustain a British population that more than doubled, hitting 21 million people. It didn't just feed them, it actually employed most of them in the process. It raised average living standards in ways the original inventors never could have imagined and the harshest critics never anticipated.
Let's move to Section 4, the agentic AI parallel. Connecting the dots to today. Let's pivot right to the present, 2025-2026, and look at how agentic AI perfectly mirrors this exact historical journey.
Agentic AI shares three very distinct similarities with the early STEAM era: workflow automation, the invisibility of the new, and the difficulty of change. Let's unpack these, starting with how we are currently automating our existing workflows.
Just think about how we're using AI right now. Just like those early factory owners who swapped a water wheel for a steam engine but kept the exact same old factory layout, we're currently just using AI to do our old jobs faster. We use it to write reports quicker, fire off emails, or, schedule meetings without the endless back and forth. It's a genuine improvement for sure, but we are literally just wiring the new thing into the old building and calling it transformation. Honestly, that is probably the least interesting thing these AI agents will end up doing.
Furthermore, just like the Steam era, we are totally suffering from the invisibility of the new. The jobs that agentic AI creates will not be simple variations on what exists today. They're going to be jobs that do not yet have names. The truly transformative jobs AI creates won't just be, faster email writer. They're going to solve problems in industries that haven't even been founded yet. We simply don't have the language for them today. And then, of course, there's the difficulty of change itself. We have to remember that the historical transition from the hand loom to the power loom took roughly 40 years, and it was genuinely, deeply hard for the people living through it. We need to internalize that just because the final destination of AI might be incredibly positive over the long arc, raising living standards or creating unbelievable new industries, it doesn't mean the transition won't be difficult and highly disruptive for many people living through it right now.
Which leads us to Section 5, the speed of change, where the analogy fractures. Because here is the dramatic twist, where this perfect parallel between Steam and AI completely shatters into a million pieces.
Back in 1712, we got the Newcomen engine. Decades later, in 1769, we saw Watt's improvements. But we didn't see the arrival of massive railways until the 1830s. The absolute most important fact about steam was that it moved slowly. It gave workers, labor unions, educational systems, and governments entire generations to adapt to the disruptions. They had the ultimate luxury. They had time.
But today, in terrifying contrast, 2 to 3 years. That's it. The trajectory from early, basic large language models to autonomous agentic AI, systems actually capable of executing complex, multi-step tasks, has compressed what historically might have been a decade of development into just 2 or 3 years. We don't have generations to sit around and figure out the new factory layout this time.
History tells us that general-purpose technologies, like Steam and now AI, always follow a pattern. They are almost always underestimated in their eventual massive scope, and they're overestimated in their short-term elegance. They are always adopted wrong before they are adopted right. They completely change what is visible right in front of us before they ever begin to create what is completely unnameable.
Which leaves us with this final, wide-open question. If the core disruption of AI is virtually identical to the 1800s, but the speed of change is exponential, literally creating whole new markets in months instead of decades, how on earth will our human institutions possibly adapt in time? It is the great, unanswered question of our era. Keep that in the back of your mind the next time you use an AI agent just to draft a simple email. Thanks for joining me on this explainer, and definitely keep questioning what comes next.